Okay, so while millions of fans are gearing up to watch the greatest players on Earth at the 2026 World Cup in Mexico's Estadio Azteca, we are going to look at something completely different in this explainer. We're diving into the invisible, architectural, and behavioral design that surrounds those fans. It's essentially the hidden matrix code of the modern stadium experience. You see, you aren't just walking into a sports venue anymore. You're stepping into a highly calibrated, perfectly tuned machine that is literally designed to manipulate your every move.
And honestly, this raises a massive, mind-bending question right out of the gate. What if FIFA isn't actually selling football? I mean, when you step through those turnstiles, you think you're just there, ticket in hand, to watch a 90-minute match, right? But what if the game itself is just the backdrop? What if the stadium architects aren't really building rows of seats to watch a sport, but instead, they are engineering an absolute masterclass in human psychology?
Well, the crazy reality is, they are selling a frequency and a flow state. The shocking thesis here is that modern stadiums are designed from the ground up to be massive psychophysiological funnels. Their primary goal is to completely bypass your rational, logical prefrontal cortex. The architects and the designers, they want you operating on pure instinct and emotion from the exact second your ticket gets scanned, flipping you from a passive viewer right into an active, non-stop consumer.
And this entire engine is built around one single colossal target. $5 billion. Yeah, billion would it be. That is the revenue expectation. And look, to hit a number that impossibly massive, absolutely nothing can be left to chance. Every single seemingly random winding corridor, every placement of a hot dog stand, the exact brightness of the overhead lights, and every booming echo of the crowd, it's all a deeply calculated decision engineered to open your wallet without you even realizing it's happening.
So let's break this down. Section 1, engineering the roar and the psychophysiology of awe.
It all starts with a very specific, almost imperceptible detail: 19 hertz. This is an extreme low-frequency sound. When you hear that deafening, chest-rattling roar of the crowd before the first goal is even scored, well, actually, scratch that. It's not just organic noise naturally bouncing off the concrete. Modern stadium acoustics are meticulously tuned, angled, and optimized to amplify frequencies right around this exact 19 hertz mark. Why? Because extensive acoustical and biological research shows this specific frequency falls right at the absolute threshold of human hearing and feeling. It triggers a deep biological sense of awe, urgency, and even collective hysteria. You literally feel it vibrating in your bones before your brain even registers the sound.
And that brings us to a wildly fascinating phenomenon called neural sync. That visceral 19 hertz vibration physically resonates inside your chest cavity, triggering a biological response that forces your nervous system to literally sync up with the 100,000 other fans around you. It creates this instant, inescapable state of collective nostalgia. Suddenly, your heart rate elevates, your pupils dilate, and you feel profoundly, deeply connected to the ghosts of past legends like Pelé and Maradona who played on that very pitch. And this overwhelming emotional high, it immediately drives what the sports industry calls legacy spending. It is the exact reason you suddenly find yourself buying a wildly overpriced retro jersey on a whim, because in that heightened biological state, it genuinely feels like you're buying a piece of history.
All right, moving to Section 2, the sludging strategy. We're looking at choice architecture at scale.
I want you to think of the physical stadium layout as a pixelated UI grid, just perfectly overlaid onto the real world. Architects use this incredibly powerful behavioral economics technique called sludging. They literally create forced walking paths designed to introduce friction to where you want to go and total ease to where they want you to spend. Step 1, you enter the gates. Step 2, you are funneled through a very specific winding route that actively prevents you from just walking straight to your section. And Step 3, that route intentionally increases the amount of time you spend trapped in high-conversion default spending zones, completely surrounded by premium merchandise and high-margin food stalls.
And the math behind this trap is just staggering. 80% of us are what behavioral scientists actually call lazy navigators. When we're dropped into a massive, chaotic stadium environment filled with overwhelming sensory input, our brains just look to conserve energy. We just take the path of least resistance to find our seats. By designing the stadium so that the easiest, most super obvious path always leads directly through a merch tent or a food concourse, spending money just becomes the default option. They are actively, mathematically exploiting natural human laziness to maximize their profit per square foot.
Which brings us to Section 3, the nostalgia loop. Let's talk about panic, urgency, and the peak end rule. We've all heard this announcement echoing through the concourse. Only 10 minutes until kickoff. Look, this isn't just a friendly reminder for management so you can comfortably find your seat. It is a meticulously timed, ticking clock designed to induce visceral urgency. In that high-energy, neon-lit environment, smelling the food and hearing the crowd start to rumble, that countdown creates a manufactured panic. It literally forces you to make rapid, high-margin buying decisions, like, dropping $20 on a basic souvenir cup without giving your brain the actual time to do the basic math. And they do this because it leverages the super powerful cognitive bias known as loss aversion, which ties directly into the peak end rule. The peak end rule basically states that human beings judge an experience almost entirely by its most intense peak moment and how it ends. As that countdown ticks closer to zero, your psychological fear of missing out on that peak moment, like the spectacular opening ceremony or the opening whistle, spikes straight through the roof. That intense FOMO literally shuts down the logical thought process in your prefrontal cortex. You completely stop worrying about prices. You just happily drop a massive amount of cash on premium food and drinks so you can grab it instantly and sprint to your seat, absolutely terrified of missing a single second of the hype.
All right, Section 4, the ultimate trap, the $5 billion psychophysiological funnel. When we put all of this together, the trap is essentially inescapable. Just think about the massive difference between a rational fan and a target fan. Outside the stadium, you're the rational fan, right? Your prefrontal cortex is fully active, you're carefully weighing if a stadium hot dog is actually worth the inflated price. But that rational fan completely ceases to exist the moment you scan your ticket. By the time you reach the vendor, you are the target fan. You are locked in a flow state, your biology is quite literally buzzing from 19 hertz acoustic nostalgia, your anxiety is elevated by the countdown clock, and you've been seamlessly sludged right into a spending zone. Your brain on FIFA is, for sure, a brain that buys.
It leaves us with one staggering, kind of terrifying realization. Every random corridor and every roar of the crowd is a calculated decision. Absolutely nothing inside these super stadiums is an accident. From the moment you enter to the exact moment you leave, you are walking through a perfectly executed, multi-billion-dollar behavioral design machine. Which leaves us with this final, truly provocative thought. Next time you step into a massive arena and you feel that deep, rumbling roar of the stadium wash over you, making your entire chest vibrate, take a second, look at the architecture winding all around you, and ask yourself, who is really pulling the strings in your brain?